we're broadcasting this on like Hangouts or something. It'll be on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get Charles spot there. And, thanks for making it. We know you have some highly prestigious work with parents, so that's why you're all checked out.
Yeah. You guys have made me nervous though. Coming here, it's been like, okay.
Yeah, so have a seat. I hope we have enough chairs if we know how to go get some. This one's broken. That was maybe.
No, it's all you.
That's right. That's
Okay. You're planning to go around.
I recognize my.
Charles is my buddy from JFK. Some of you know me on Wall. I run Notable. This building is our office is a bunch of people that work here. We call it the Knotel. And there were some things that were sort of on my mind lately, and I thought, oh, it'd be nice to just like invite a bunch of folks. Everybody paddles has been on my mind lately, and I think I'm going to ask him if he wants to give a talk. I passed it around to a few friends. But I think it's a room mostly of like startup people and startup founders and CEOs here, which face the problems that you think about, work on, and then we'll get to you last, and then we'll hand it over to you. Anna, do you want to say one line?
I'm Anna. I was a founder before, and now I'm a small business.
Okay.
Going this way, Mark Babsky. I'm starting my fourth company.
Okay. That's why I spent some time on a lot of beaches, so I would love.
More beaches.
I'm Brad Larson. I work at a company called Workfront. We're about 70 employees, some of the founding engineers. Kind of more geared to the front end, but looking to one day soon take that job.
No. Well, so I'll go ahead and Noah Smith. Peer-to-peer lending small business.
John Goss, I have a company, it's called Knotel Financial. We provide financial services to real estate businesses, primarily CFO advisory and bookkeeping.
Jonathan Wasserstone.
May get some emails from you.
I'm Kurt Brown. I'm building a gaming app for movie market research startup.
Okay. What's interesting about everything that I do is I realize that the issues that we all face, regardless if you're a small company or a large company, for-profit or not-for-profit, in essence winds up being the same. You know, you have the same issues of not just capital, but you have the same issues of people. How do you manage people? How do you lead people? How do you let people lead and manage you? I have two of the people in the room from my not-for-profit that I started 20 years ago, and one of them probably manages me more than I manages her. Saw an ad that said if you wanted to start your own business. So we filled it out on the airplane, being gung-ho about everything, and 20 years later, we're about a $30 million not-for-profit servicing people throughout New York City and to New Jersey in the next year. With that, I can tell you that the leadership and the management and the strategic thinking process is an ongoing process. So what I will talk to you about are some things that have really helped me, but what I do enjoy the most is the exchange of questions. So feel free to stop me, feel free to interrupt me, and also feel free to challenge me, because I think that's the way I learn as much as I think you will learn. In the spaces of startups these days, what I find to be the most interesting thing about leadership, you hear about transformational leadership, you hear about a team member approach to leadership, you hear about a number of different types, but I believe that authentic leadership is what really is going to help all of you and help all the people that are going to come to you really kind of want to stay with you. When you think about the 70 employees, what they're really going to want to hear is someone who has real life experiences, that they really understand what leadership is about. And in the same way, understanding that leadership is, I didn't like when my supervisor or boss did X, so I'm not going to do it. It's that type of authentic leadership that I think is going to assist. So what came out of that at Evelyn Douglas Center for Serving People in Need was Everybody Matters, which is a simple concept that if you work together at the same time, in the same direction, towards the same goal, you would be able to accomplish things. So we've been able to really create a culture where people understand that you are needed to contribute, that you are needed to add value, and if you don't, this is the tough part, we have to let you go. It's a really kind of, I think, an authentic approach to leadership and management. You all want people who are going to work with you and work for you, who want to be there, who want to add value every day. How many of you have ever worked with someone who you just knew was not pulling their weight? And when you think about it, thank you. When you think about it, you kind of realize that to do something different.
Sorry about that. Trying to live Instagram this.
Okay. I'm dealing with the allergies, the whole thing, so sorry if my voice is a little raspy. But they would have been better served for themselves and for the company if they would have found a way out. So what I really focus on with all the companies I work with and speak to is 6 principles. Principle 1 is unity stabilizes the and the whole crew member matters. You're going to love that one. It's one of my favorite. 4, communicate clearly to stay on course. 5, problem solving, course correction. And 6 is everybody matters, or every crew member matters. And I'll start from the bottom up because I think you'll kind of understand why unity is really important if you can get to the concept of everybody matters. I think there are exceptions to the rule. One of the other styles of leadership is situational leadership. And as a leader, you're going to need to kind of understand all types. But I think that if you keep these 6 principles in mind, regardless of the situation, you kind of know everybody matters. So even with, if, for instance, you have an employee who is absolutely incorrect, and you know that they're wrong and it's not going to work, situationally, everybody matters. So in that moment, simple just listening to them, getting other people's input on it, is obviously dealing with the situation, but still getting to the place where that person is allowed to be heard. So you want to kind of create that environment. So there are exceptions, and you know, and I'll bring something that's happening in the world. I saw this thing yesterday. I think we all saw it in Baltimore, and how crazy it is that regardless of what your opinion on all of it that's happening, Ethiopia, etc., you have this thought that people don't feel valued, that people are living and they don't feel like anyone wants to hear them, anyone thinks that they have something to contribute, etc. It's the same thing in your business. You don't feel like they can talk to you. It's really just going to be an environment. I mean, I'm 42. So, you know, in my 20s, I probably was that employee that didn't want to listen, and it was my way or the highway. But at some point, you have to create spaces where even if it doesn't go your way or their way, the exchange of ideas and the exchange of opinion, you develop in the app. So even if it winds up being, well, we don't have the capital for this right now, we can do this in phase 1, this in phase 2. But if people sit in the room and they all get to exchange their ideas, then you can kind of feel that people will feel like they're adding some value. So you want to kind of create that space in an everyday type of environment. One thing that we do at EDC Spin, which is the acronym we use, is occasionally I've done a state of the agency address, which allows them to hear everything I'm thinking and allow them to challenge me on everything that they think we can't do or we shouldn't do. For instance, I wanted to do daycare services for both disabled and non-disabled children about 5 years ago. And speaking with the team, it was one of those things where we weren't ready for it. We didn't have the infrastructure, we didn't have the employee capital, we didn't have the space in order to do it. For it if I didn't get everyone the same.
How often do you get people together?
Well, the management team, the cabinet gets together every 6 weeks. We get the whole agency together once a year for that type of event. But within each program, there is approximately 8 or 9 programs. Each program has their own staff meeting where their exchange of ideas occur. And the other thing that happens, because we deal with people and provide a service, which includes clinical supports, other community supports. So they get together to kind of decide on what happens to the individual. But it doesn't have to be a uniform thing. It could be, well, we have this new project coming on, we have a grant that someone's going to give us some money for, let's get together and talk. And don't be afraid to get together over dinner or drinks, but you guys are techies, so you all get over drinks, right? 5 is problem solving. Works for me, so it might be situational with someone else. You get 60 seconds to talk about the problem. I don't want to I'll spend hours on the solution. I'll spend days on it if we have to. But kind of getting away from the concept that we can talk about the problem forever. And I think that has really served us early on in our career, in my career, later on in my career, where people understand, if I'm going to come and talk to Charles about a problem, I got 60 seconds, so let's get in, and then I have the rest of the hour or so to talk about what we possibly can do to change. And but if we look at what the opportunity is and how we can resolve some things, I think we'll all be better. Any questions on that? But you all understand what I mean. Like, typically, there's a lot of people who spend just days on what's going on for everyone. Okay, so obviously you should be talking about money because it's always going to be talking about, okay, with what we have now, how can we improve what we're on a blanket. Before it's not, it is communicate clearly to stay on course. We do a lot of messaging at Everett Douglas Center. We have some values that are posted throughout the office so people understand what's important to us. And I think that the nonverbal is something that you should pay attention to as much. Back in. If you're ever in a meeting and someone shifts, do something to change, because either the room is too warm, it's too cold, they really don't want to be there, or they might already understand what you're talking about. So you kind of want to either move on or spend more time on a particular issue. A lot of it also is that some people will not like you, and that's okay. Understand that that has to be okay, but also understanding that they're communicating something and you're equally communicating something. For people who don't care for my leadership, and I would love to believe that everyone loves me, but they don't, what I often have done is find opportunities to talk to them one-on-one, to really communicate with them so they clearly understand what I'm totally about and not what they either think I'm about or what they assume I'm about. So, and that has actually served us well, where we had an employee that, you know, we were very close to actually asking them to leave because of the whole that they were, that these two individuals weren't able to get along on the team. But once we were able to kind of resolve that issue with the person and create a subcommittee, which allows them to still be involved, but try to figure out. They're still there. When I say a little bit longer, meaning that who knows what will happen. But I think the one thing you get from me is I'm not afraid to confront the problem. And I think that the one thing that even startups are really afraid of is letting people go. Don't be afraid to let someone go out your business. Because if not, your business could possibly fail. It can possibly slow down. It won't thrive as much as you like. And I think that that's the challenge I always find with startups. It's happened to us. We've given an example. At some point, we had obviously hired a lot of our friends and family. And that wasn't always a good idea. And, you know, we got to the place where it was either the survival of our business or maintaining really bad relationships with family and friends that weren't conducive to the business. So we actually, those are people who have left. And obviously we have a lot of people where there's a policy, you know, that staff members and other low-level, entry-level managers, they can invite people to come and work. But you can't be supervised by somebody that you know or have a personal relationship with. I don't invite any of my family or friends to work at the organization just so that there is any conflict. Because once you build friendships and really close relationships with them, most people are not your friends.
You say that applies to early stage startups as well, right? You know, I have 3 friends that we work very well together. You might want to do something else, but we obviously have a friendship outside of work now as well. You know that.
Yes. I have actually had a brother and a sister who worked for the organization, and they no longer work there. I just felt that it wasn't conducive to other people understanding that no one gets special privilege, no one gets special attention. At any point, as you being the leader of it, that those friendships come in conflict with other employees begin to see that there's a little bit of favoritism, you can possibly have problems. And this is an exception. It doesn't happen to everyone. There are some people who can really clearly separate. But the minute that those relationships affect your business, you wind up being in a position where you have to make a decision.
Well, a lot of times though, people try to start companies with people that know well, because it's suggested that what stops working, they can move on it. But how about at the outset?
I think I think in the outset it's important. Me and the co-founders started the organization. We were friends at the time. We're no longer friends for a lot of other different reasons. But I think what happened is understanding the type of friendship you have. There are people, and obviously my brother and sister are still my brother and sister. We still have holidays together and other things. But you know, you wind up realizing at the start, and we all know the people that are our friends. We all know, are they going to pull their weight? We kind of all have a good